Another Dooley Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another Dooley Noted podcast, presented as always by Titan MRI, and of course brought to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios here at home today. And we got a great show for you today. Buck Belue is going to join us a little bit later. We'll talk to him about Georgia, whether they're getting bored. They won't be bored this week. We all know that. So we'll talk to Buck about that. Of course, great Georgia quarterback from the past and does radio now. Coach Spurrier on Monday, and then on the following Thursday when Florida's playing Arkansas, Tom Murphy's going to join us from the Northwest Arkansas Gazette. Wouldn't be any good if he was from the Northwest Arizona Gazette. That'd be from Northwest Arkansas. And look, he knows that place better than anybody. I love talking to him because he'll give you the straight poop on what's going on with Arkansas. So that'll be our shows for the next 3 shows. And of course, Robbie Andrew will join us on Monday for Yes, Nowhere, maybe. So we got a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to deal with. Let's go ahead and get to it right away on the Process Service of Gainesville. Starting 5, brought to you by the Process Service of Gainesville. Scott Hart and the boys over there, we appreciate them and all they do. All right, let's start off with number 1. And the number 1 thing to me is the Brock Bowers issue. Now, Bowers is out for the game, as we know. They're hoping to get him back for the SEC title game, but that I don't think Florida fans could care less if he's back or not for that game. They only know he's not back for this game, and I think a lot of Gator fans, that is one reason there has been this kind of wave of optimism about this game that has surprised me a little bit. I mean, I'm talking about what I hear on radio, what I hear talking to people, in the streets and gyms and everything like that. The level of optimism is way higher than I think it usually would be for a game like this when one team's ranked number 1 and one team is unranked. I don't share in that optimism now, and one reason I don't is because they've got other tight ends. Oscar Delp is a really good tight end. He's played for them this year, played last year. They'll be fine at tight end. Now, Brock Bowers is a unicorn. There's no doubt about that. He is a unique player, unbelievable player. Give him all the credit in the world. He had a shot to be on my Heisman ballot. I don't think missing as many games as he is, I don't think there's any way I can put him on there now. But so, I mean, yeah, he is special, and he's not going to be playing the game. That is a little advantage for Florida, but in so many other levels, so many other areas, Georgia has, they've got a lot of advantage. They got better players. And we've talked about this on the radio, and I've talked about it in other things. I talked about it to the quarterback club the other day. The bottom line is Georgia has been building a recruiting base and building classes and stacking recruiting classes for 8 years. Now, I know that the guys that played for them 7 years ago are not playing in this game. I get that. But they have been building this organization for a long time. This is, in my opinion, year 1 for Billy Napier, because the first year is always hard. But if you want to call it, it's year 2. And this is year 8 for Kirby. They're doing a better job. They've done a tremendous job. They're doing what every athletic director in America hopes they can hire a Nick Saban disciple and have him be even better than Nick Saban. Now, there's only one who's done that. I know that other coaches have now beat him a couple of times, his disciples. Jimbo beat him, but you're not going to tell me Texas A&M's program's up there with Alabama's. It's not. But Kirby is kind of taken over, and Florida's going to have to slowly get to where they are right there on the same page, and that's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And winning this game is not going to be easy. I think Florida's got to play almost a perfect game. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. But, for example, Georgia has no fumbles recovered this year, all season. They haven't caused hardly any. but they do have 9 picks. Florida doesn't have. They got 2 fumble recoveries and 2 interceptions. They don't get turnovers. They don't turn it over a lot. So if you take that out of the mix, and if you say it's a flat turnover game, let's say it's 0-0, that's still not going to help Florida. Florida's going to need to get turnovers, not turn the ball over. They're going to need things to go their way. I mean, this is 1 versus 28 if you go by the, also receiving votes. So, and there's a reason. There's a very good reason why that's the case. But hey, look, it's college football, man. It's like Lloyd Christmas. You're saying there's a chance, and there is a chance. I think Florida's got a better chance to beat Georgia than Lloyd Christmas had of getting. What was her name in the movie? Lauren Holly's her name, but I can't think of what her name was in the movie. But anyway, so I did want to bring up the Brock Bowers issue because it does give Florida a little bit of a reason for maybe feeling a little bit better about what's going to happen here, but it's not enough, and they're going to play well. Number 2 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5, and here's the biggest reason: they are so good in the middle. And Urban Meyer is the first guy that ever said this, at least in my presence, and I've used this a lot. It's like baseball. Football is like baseball in this. You have to be strong up the middle. You have to be strong at quarterback. You have to be strong at center. And the 2 guards, you have to be strong at the 2 tackles in the middle. You have to be strong at middle linebacker, and you have to be strong at free safety all the way at the end. So right up the middle, if you're strong, you're good. Those Florida teams were great up the middle when they won the national championships under Urban. This Georgia team is kind of like that. They're very strong up the middle. And I think what they'll do is just run the ball. Now, Florida's been pretty good against the run, except then they played that game against Kentucky. And don't forget, this is why it's hard for me to get very optimistic about this game. Kentucky ran on Florida. Florida couldn't stop them. They ran pretty much the same plays over and over, a bunch of trap plays. Guy ran for 270. Okay. Then he went against Georgia. He ran for 59. That's why it's hard, and Georgia, Georgia is not a good running team statistically right now, but they have thrown the ball a lot more. It could be that Georgia comes into this game and they take that role of, hey, we're going to go old school Spurrier on them. We're going to throw to set up the run. And that may be what it is, but I just don't know how Florida's going to stop the run. And then again, now you're facing, even with Brock Bowers out, probably the best receivers you're going to see. I don't know if you're going to be the best you're going to see all season. LSU may have better. You can make an argument for FSU having better, but George is as good as almost everybody in that position, wide receiver. Ladd McConkey is back. He missed. I think he only played in 2 games, but he's back now, and he's a really good player. They've got. The guy that got hurt, I'm trying to think of how Emery, the Saint. How do you pronounce his name? It's 3 names. Rosemary. I always screw it up, so I'm not gonna try. But anyway, he broke his leg in the Florida game last year on the same play. Stetson Bennett hurt his shoulder, and that kind of helped Florida down 14-0 come back in that game, if you remember, up in the Gator Bowl. So. But he's having a nice year. They got 2 transfers, one from Mississippi State, one from Clemson, I think. Anyway, who are doing really well for them as well. They've got a ton of receivers. As I said earlier, having Bowers out, it's not going to help them. But I just think they can run the ball in Florida. And, if Florida gets to that point where they feel like they're going to come up and because that's the thing. If they go 3 wide, and this is what Kentucky did a lot. They didn't do it all the time, but they went 3 wide, and that caused 4 or 5 Florida secondary guys to not be playing a run. And then they ran the ball right up the middle and were so successful. And I think that's what Georgia's going to do, a similar thing. Spread it out and then run the ball. Florida one day is going to be really good up the middle. Florida one day is going to have linebackers that are big, strong, guys. I don't know if they're ever going to have a guy like Brandon Spike, 6'5", 250, can run. I don't know. There aren't too many guys like Brandon Spikes around, but that's what they kind of need, that kind of guy. What they have now are strong safeties playing middle linebacker. And they're good at it, and they're going to get bigger, and they're going to get stronger, and they're going to get faster, and then they'll be really good at it. And when they are really good at it, a game like this will be a game you feel like maybe Florida can win. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, number 3 on our process service of games will starting 5. Big question, is this a litmus test for Florida? And my answer to that is not really, because we all know Georgia's better than Florida. Okay, we knew it before the season. Nothing has happened that makes us change our minds about it. Georgia's really good. Florida is trying to get to be good, not really good. I mean, Georgia's great. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I don't know if they're as good as they were last year or the year before. They're as good as they need to be. And when they need to be good, they're good. You saw that against South Carolina. They're down 14-3 at the half. They come out and dominate the second half. Whatever they need to do is what they do. Against Kentucky, I think they said, we need to hit them in the mouth first, because they hit Florida in the mouth. Florida didn't respond. Let's hit Kentucky in the mouth. They got way ahead. It was a blowout. But it's not really a litmus test, though, because like I've told people this week, I had no feel for the Utah game. I had no feel for the Tennessee game. I had no feel for the Kentucky game, and I had no feel for the South Carolina game. That's rare that I would not have any feel for those games. I have a feel for this game. It's not a good feel. I don't really see a path to winning for Florida, but it's college football, and I think what was the game last week? North Carolina, Virginia. Virginia had one win and ended up beating North Carolina. That's what happens in college football. That's why we love watching it so much. But we'll see what happens there in terms of whether Florida is able to be competitive in the game. Look, everybody, and when I said this before the Tennessee game, I had people tearing me apart, including Paul Feinbaum, because I said that Florida was if they were at least in the game and it came down to the wire, and if they lost, it would, people weren't going to get too mad, and everybody lost their minds. But I'm hearing it from Gator fans this year, or this week, that same exact sentiment. You can just be competitive, have a chance, give yourself a chance to be in the game. Bring it down to the fourth quarter and see where we are in the fourth quarter and have a chance. Yeah, I think that would be great. It's not like Georgia is. I don't think Georgia's as good as they were last year or the year before, but they're still the best team in the country, unless it's Michigan, but it's not Florida. If Michigan was playing them, I might have a different feeling about it. Of course, Michigan would have the advantage of cheating. So, but when we talk about Georgia, we say they're not as good maybe as we thought they were. Well, I think they're number one in defense and number 2 in offense in the nation. So that's pretty good. That's going to be hard to beat. But I know a lot of people will point out the schedule. And the schedule was set up easy for them. Some of it was them. Some of it, they were going to play Oklahoma, but the SEC said, nope, we're going to home and away. And I don't know why the SEC did that. I don't think they had to do that. I think they could have just said, hey, look, Georgia, go play this game in Norman, and then we'll get to the conference when they move over. We'll see where you line up with them conference-wise. But otherwise, you're not playing anybody in the non-conference. Your biggest, toughest opponent is going to be Georgia Tech. But then again, if you're the SEC and you go, well, hey, we probably can't let you do this. I know Alabama's playing Texas, but this is a return game. But we can't give Oklahoma a return game, whatever. And maybe Oklahoma said, hey, we don't want it to be like this. We didn't know we were coming to the league. Whatever happened, it happened. But obviously their non-conference schedule is really weak. But the one decent team they played was Kentucky, and they blew them out. Now, That said, Georgia's schedule does get a lot more interesting now. They play, obviously, Florida this week, Missouri next week, and then I think Tennessee after that. I think that's the way it is. So, I mean, they could lose one of those games. And because they played such a soft schedule, they have to get a little bit nervous if they lose a game, about not making the playoffs because they haven't played anybody. And when you look at strength of schedule, Florida, Georgia isn't very good. Heck, let's just say Florida beats Georgia. Okay, just say Florida beats Georgia, and wins out, and goes and beats Alabama in the SEC title game, and they're 10-2, so that would make them 11-2. Strength of schedule, I think Florida would get in. Now, I'm not saying any of this has a chance of happening. Okay, this may be the last day I can say that has a chance of happening because mathematically it could happen. But anyway, so we'll see what happens there. All right, let's get to number 4 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. I did want to talk about helmet and helmet communications, and with the thing that's going on with Michigan, and obviously them having a guy doing in-house recruiting, which is against the rule. I mean, not recruiting, but spying. It's against the rules, and using electronics to spy is against the rules and against NCAA rules. What's not against NCAA rules is stealing signs. If your Ricky Eckstein was the king of it, Jen Brown, very good at it. She was pretty good at it. So they stole signs all the time, and they were good at it. But they were just looking at the signs and figuring them out and being smart about it. They weren't taping them and then doing other stuff with them. Miami, of course, everybody knows, used to have a camera out in center field, and they would signal in what the calls were. That's where the Astros got that way of stealing signs from. But that's illegal. You're not supposed to do that kind of stuff. The point is, people have brought up this week about are we going to get to a point where the quarterbacks have helmets where the coaches can talk to them? And the first thing you hear is, well, financially. No, stop right there. All right. All the Power 5 schools can afford it. If the other ones can't, then don't have them. Okay? Now, you don't have to have them, but if you want to get them, get them. But if the Power 5 schools, it's going to break off anyway, I think eventually. It'll be like 60 schools and then, 70 schools that are Division I, but they're playing for a different title or something. Maybe there'll be relegation. The bottom line is you can afford it. All this money that's coming in, I know that everybody's building these cathedrals, but you could afford helmets with the thing. However, here's what I think. No, don't do that. This college football is the sport where home crowd matters the most. You saw how little it mattered in Major League Baseball playoffs. But in college football, home crowds matter, and it gives you hope. And that's why you go to the game. You go to the game because you think, if I go to the game and I make enough noise, I can affect the game. Well, if you put these helmets on with the the monitors in them and they can hear, you're taking all that out. And so I wouldn't do that. I like what college football is. I mean, everybody's always wanting to screw with college football. It's the best sport there is. I know it doesn't have the highest ratings. That belongs to the NFL. I get that. It's the best sport. It's not even close. So don't put headpiece. Don't put earphones in the. I have no problem with it in baseball because baseball, the crowd really doesn't affect a college baseball game. When your pitcher's on the mound, you're the home team, it obviously has no effect there. I just don't think it's that big a deal. I think it's fine. But football, no. I'm voting no on that. All right, and finally, number 5 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. We do have our World Series. We have a lot of things. We have a Speaker of the House and our World Series opponents, all I think decided about the same time. Diamondbacks and Rangers, nobody saw that coming. Nobody. Not one soul. I can't think of anybody. Anyway, I didn't see it coming. It's kind of a weird dynamic for me, though, because I was rooting against obviously the Astros because of their cheating. And look, I know Ken Hesser will never forgive me for this, but the Phillies are in our division. The Phillies knocked us out. Yeah, I wasn't rooting for the Phillies. I can tell you that. I wasn't really watching that much, but I watched a little bit. I watched a lot of the last game just because it was a game 7. But the point is, the Diamondbacks and Rangers, I have nothing in the game. I have no positive thoughts, no negative thoughts, nothing. I don't know who I'm going to root for. I guess maybe, like I asked Karen about it, she goes, hey, when the game comes on, we'll figure it out. And that is usually the way it happens with it when I don't know who I want to root for in a game. The music will play or something will happen, or I'll look at a guy and I'll go, yeah, I think I'm going to root for them. I'll probably root for one team, and then if they win, then I'll root for the other team the next week. Anyway, that is our World Series. All right, let us get a break here on another Dooley Noted podcast. We'll come back. Buck Belue will join us. We'll do yes, no, where, maybe with them, and then, of course, we'll get to all of our other great stuff. We'll do a Leonardo's Quick Picks poll on Monday. So you got one last chance to qualify, and it's a pretty simple one, but we'll get to that. I'm doing that for Halloween. I'm going to do a poll for Halloween. So how about that? Maybe I'll put some candy corn in there while I'm at it. Candy corn, I'm one of those people, candy corn is my favorite candy, but I don't like eating it because it just feels like you can feel the cavities forming in your teeth while you're eating it. So, but it's still, if I have a choice, that would be what I want. All right, we'll take a break and we'll come back with Buck Belue here on another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studio. Gator fans, football season is here. What's better than seeing the Gators back on the field? Easy. Seeing amazing speakers and fellow Gator fans weekly at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. Held every Tuesday night of a home game at the Best Western Gateway Grand. Enjoy happy hour, great food, valuable insights from yours truly and Andy Staples, plus notable speakers throughout the season. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or visit thequarterbackclub.org. Or better yet, just give me a call and I'll get you to the right people.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the Paralegal Legal Secretary Bonus Program.
Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast from the Dooley Dome Studios, brought to you by Meldon Law, and of course brought to you as always by Titan MRI. It's a great pleasure to go to our Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line and bring in my good friend Buck Belue. Of course, you know him well, all SEC quarterback and breaker of hearts down here in Gainesville. How you doing, Buck?
Doing well, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody keeps talking about this Georgia team, and well, they haven't looked that good. They've looked vulnerable and everything, and I'm like, and they look bored. And then I go, well, I think they're number one in defense and number two in offense in the country. That doesn't sound bored to me.
Yeah, it looks like they maybe have taken a little bit of a step back here as far as the last 2 years go. But, the one thing I realized is Kirby's got this new philosophy of with this soft schedule they've had so far this year, he's playing everybody. Everybody gets to play. And he's doing that because he doesn't want them thinking about transferring. So, instead of winning 55-7, you win 35-7. And, I think he's okay with that. And so I think you got to factor some of that into it. But look, they're as deep at every position as I've ever seen it. It's been really impressive. The running back spot is a little bit of an issue coming into this week's game against the Gators. I can't imagine what would happen if Dajan Edwards got dinged up a little bit. They're really thin at the running back spot. And then the edge rusher position on defense is not as impactful as it's been the last 2 years, too.
I've said this earlier, but if Georgia just lines up and runs, between the guards, the whole game, they'll win the game. Florida's not going to be able. Florida couldn't stop Kentucky running it there, and I know that what they'll do is they'll spread Florida out and then run the ball up the middle.
Well, Florida's got these two nose tackles that are 360 and 420. I can't imagine. The 420 is not always in the game, though. He still has issues with being on the field too long. I've sat down and watched the last two games that Florida's played, and really impressed with the offensive side. Graham Mertz is playing at a high level. They got multiple weapons over there that can give you those explosive plays that you need, like ETN, and really like the receiver Pearsall, who's done some great things there. The freshman Wilson looks like he can give you those big plays. Defensively, they look like they're playing at a pretty good level over there. I know that maybe depth is a problem, but overall, I've been impressed with what I've seen just watching the video.
The biggest issue for Georgia is no recovered fumbles all year. How about that stat?
Yeah, they're working on the strip sacks, and I think during practice they're working on some of that. It is sort of crazy. You look at the stat line and you see the scoring defense, third down defense. You see these numbers that are close, if not at the top of college football defensively, and then you see, the forced turnovers, the sacks. They just don't. When you look at those two categories, right, you wonder what the heck's going on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And of course, Florida's only got 4 turnovers gained all year. 2 fumbles and both of the picks were on balls that were forced, just floaters up in the air that I could have picked off. Well, I don't know. Back in my old days when I was covering the Jacksonville Bulls, I might have had the athletic ability to pick them off.
Well, I'd say every time they cut to a close-up of the defensive coordinator, I think he looks like he's a teenager over there, coaching up the defense. He's doing a fine job, though, the best I can tell.
He is. Hey, what do you remember the most about those days when you were with the Jacksonville Bulls? I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I said, what a quarterback room. I had Sipe, I had Mahfouz, I had Ed Luther, I had Buck Belue. It was great. They were great personalities.
Yeah, Kelly Lowry was there for a little bit out of Florida State. Ben Bennett, Kenny Hobart out of Idaho. That was Lindy Infante, who, let me just say, it was an honor to have studied under him, is the way I look at it, because, the passing game was not something they were teaching a lot of up in Athens. During my career at Georgia, we were pretty simplified there on the passing game. So it was just a thrill and an honor to be working under Lindy Infante and to be able to learn his system and the NFL philosophy of the passing game. That was, you wonder at the time, what am I doing here? I'm playing minor league ball one year. I'm in the USFL the next. What's going on? But looking back on it, I really treasure those days down in Jacksonville in the USFL.
Yeah. I mean, did you ever think that baseball was going to be your life going forward and you were going to be in the World Series someday?
That was the dream. That was the dream growing up. And it was a deciding factor on where I went to college too. Alabama and Bear Bryant, he was going to have none of that. And he told me straight up on the recruiting visit, he said, "Belue, we've never had a football player play baseball, and we sure aren't going to start with you." And I wanted to tell him, look, I don't want to come over here and run the wishbone, but I had to get over here to see how you were winning all these football games. So, it's pretty obvious who was going to let me do that and who wouldn't. But that was the dream. At the time I was thinking I could play baseball a lot longer than I could play football.
Right.
But the thing that sort of changed me on that was seeing Andre Dawson take batting practice at spring training. And I thought, this is the guy I'm supposed to beat out. That's not going to happen. I mean, that ball coming off Andre Dawson's bat sounded different than everybody else.
Yeah, Bear Bryant probably told you, we don't let our football players play baseball, but we do let our swimmers play football, because he used to sign all these swimmers and track athletes, and they'd end up with 200 guys on scholarship. And it was that they had to put in a rule just for that, to keep that from happening.
I played in the East-West Shrine football all-star game a few years later, and Bear Bryant was our coach. And so I was going over grabbing a cup of coffee with him in the morning, he and Bo Schembechler, and, sharing some stories back and forth. And I asked him, I said, "Coach, you remember when you told me on that recruiting visit you weren't going to let me play baseball?" And Coach Bryant said, "No, I don't remember that." I was thinking, well, I sure do.
Great stories. Let me ask you though about, the elephant in the room, which is Brock Bowers not playing this game. And obviously this guy Delp they have behind him is a good player too. I mean, there's only one Brock Bowers. He's a unicorn. He's kind of like, he's a different version of what Kyle Pitts was for Florida. Pitts just had that incredible catch radius and could never dropped anything. Bowers has an ability to take a little screen pass and go to the yard. So it does hamper them a little bit, but I don't know how much they'll change their offense. I mean, they're probably still going to run pretty much the same stuff, right?
Yeah, I got to see Delp play in high school, so I'm very familiar with his skill set. And I've always thought his skill set was really similar to Brock Bowers. The only difference was Bowers had that 4.5 speed that really set him apart. But I don't think they'll have to change the scheme or the play calling. Delp will be involved as far as catching the ball. He's a big receiver like Brock is. But I think you'll just see the ball spread out a little bit more. Rosemead Jack Saint, the ex-receiver, probably get a few more touches. Ladd McConkey's back healthy again. He barely played earlier in the year, so I would imagine he'll get the ball. Some Lovett's already getting the ball about 5 or 6 times a game. Ra Thomas might be another one that might get a few more touches in the game too. So I don't think anything's going to change. Bowers was talk about unbelievable. Pat, I think he's the best football player in the country. Is against Auburn, Georgia really struggling, and Bobo's done a really nice job of lining up Bowers all over the field, X, Z, slot. And in the Auburn game, there was a 3rd down and 1. Georgia really needed a 1st down, and they lined him up at running back and gave him the ball between the tackles, and he picked up 3 yards in the 1st down. And I was thinking, there's not another play in the country that could do the things that he can do.
No, I will say this, he would have definitely been on my ballot somewhere for the Heisman. Being out for this long, it's going to be hard for me to put him on there now. And you know how it is with injuries. Guys get hurt and we kind of forget him. I mean, I remember the year Tebow won, that quarterback at Oregon, Dixon, was going to win it. I mean, and then he blew his knee out in like a Thursday night game, and that was it. He was done. Nobody voted for him. So, but he is certainly a great player. I do want to ask you about their receivers or other receivers though, because you mentioned Rosemead Jack Saint, you mentioned all the receivers, but That's as good a group as I think Florida has faced. I mean, they may face better receivers against LSU, maybe, and maybe FSU. But so far this year, I don't know if anybody's got as many quality receivers as Georgia does.
Yeah, and Arian Smith is another that made some big explosive plays a year ago, and he's been non-existent so far this year. Just hadn't touched the ball at all. So this is the best receiving group I've seen Georgia have in recent memory, and I think it's because of Brian McClendon, the wide receiver coach, who left Georgia, and he's down in Miami with the Hurricanes, went out to Oregon and coached a little bit out there, and Kirby brought him back home and plugged him back in as the receiver coach. And I tell you what, he is as good a recruiter as you're going to see. And so he was able to bring in Lovett and Thomas in the transfer portal. He's doing a great job on the recruiting trail as far as high school receivers go. You get these assistant coaches can make a real impact, and Brian McClendon's done a great job.
Didn't they
loading
make
up this wide receiver core?
Yeah, didn't they make him the interim when they fired Mark Richt?
Yeah, I played with his dad, and Willie was with the Jacksonville Bulls too, and so I've known him since he was in diapers. I remind him of that, and I bump into him. But he is just a great coach all the way around. Kirby, he's done an awesome job loading up this coaching staff with outstanding coaches. I mean, I look at that defensive staff and think this is the best defensive staff in college football.
Yeah, I mean, we hate to admit that because one of the guys is, of course, a guy who was a head coach at Florida, but he's in the right element for him. Being a defensive coordinator is what he was put on this earth to do, and he is doing a tremendous job. We were talking to Buck Belue from 680 The Fan, of course, great quarterback at the University of Georgia. And without getting into what happened in 1980, I want to talk to you about just going over that bridge to the Florida-Georgia game and what the emotions that would run through it for you as a player.
It would take your breath away. You get the chill bumps when you get up on top of the bridge and you start your way down to the stadium and you see the complex and see the chaos going on down there. And I just thought, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. It just doesn't. And I just always loved and treasured the 50-50 split as far as the crowd went. You could really feel the momentum shifts in the game more so than being at home or on the road. And so it was sort of like a bowl game in the middle of the year. It was refreshing. You needed it. It was a grind at that point in time in the season. So it was really refreshing to be a part of a rivalry that featured a neutral site game like this. It was, and then growing up in Valdosta, you always dream about one day maybe playing in the Georgia-Florida game. And so that was sort of a dream come true, being a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm big on play calls, what the play call was. What was the play call on Lindsey Scott? I want to know the numerical and what, who was lined up where. I want to know everything about it.
Yeah, you won't believe it. It was called, the play was called Left 76.
That's it.
Left 76. And look, the ball had to go to Lindsey. He was our explosive player. So the ball had to go his way. The thing you probably don't realize, though, Pat, in 81, the very next year, we won by the same score, 26-21.
Yeah.
And we ran that play several times. 2 times Herschel scored on the play. Left 76, you had the Z receiver run a post pattern. You had the X receiver ran the deep crossing route, which is what Lindsey ran in 1980. You had the tight end on a shallow crossing route, and the running back ran an arrow route. We called it a delay route at the time. And in 81, the very next year, I checked it down to Herschel twice, and he caught it and turned that into touchdown passes the very next season. So that was our best.
It's never a bad idea to get the ball in Herschel's hands,
I tried to tell him. I tried to tell him that. And I tried to tell him we need to get that ball to Lindsey Scott a little bit more, too. They never listened to me.
Yeah, that was interesting. A lot of people think that was the way you went out with the championship, but I was actually at the bowl game in '81. But you guys had a great year that year too.
Yeah, I thought we were more talented overall. We had a really great recruiting class in '81, and a lot of those got a chance to play during that season. And look, that was the best run in Georgia football history: 80, 81, 82, 83. And now this team that Kirby has right now, this run they're on, 24 wins in a row, has just eclipsed what we were able to get done there in the early '80s. So these Bulldog fans, they it took 40 years to get back to that level, but they're enjoying that right now.
Not only that, but they're if it starts to go away, they'll turn on it like everybody does. All like Florida fans right now are like, why can't we go back to when Urban was winning all those games and Spurrier was winning all those games? But it takes the right guy. I mean, and Kirby obviously was the right guy. I didn't know that he would be when he took the job, but he's turned out to be a great coach, and he's learned on the job too.
He really is so much better with the media these days. Came off as sort of not very friendly with the media, but I think he's gotten some advice. He's now using that as an opportunity to promote the program. It's a little more positive. I think he's done a great job with that. And look, Pat, I don't think there's any coach working any harder than Kirby Smart is. And he doesn't get enough credit, too, for the bond that he can create with the teenager. That takes a special talent to be able to interact with a 17-year-old and really get their attention. And he does a great job with that, too. He was the perfect guy to get in there, and it took him a long time to get that figured out. I'm glad Mike Cavan and those boosters that went over to spoke with him over at Alabama were able to convince him to come take the job and come back home. And, as I understand it, the conversation went, he needed a few things they needed to present him with a few things that would convince him to come and take the job. And one was he needed the biggest recruiting budget in college football. He needed a huge budget for the assistant coaches was the other very important factor. And they came through on both those demands. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened.
I was telling a Mike Cavan story just the other day. Somebody.
He's Kirby's right-hand man up here right now.
Let me tell you what, I've got a million of them because he used to recruit Jacksonville. So me and him and Gene Pullen and Tommy Dudley would go out all the time and have a blast. So play a lot of golf with Mike Cavan. Great guy. All right. We got to get to our yes, no way, or maybe with Buck Belue. Of course, it is brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteaks, street dining done the right way. Go in there and say that you listen to another Dooley Noted podcast and you get free fries with your order. All right, number one on yes, no way, or maybe, Buck Belue. Georgia and Alabama play for the SEC title this year.
Yes.
No doubt?
Yeah, 99%.
Yeah, that's the way I feel too. I mean, LSU's got such a good offense, but man, they just I don't know how that defense is as bad as they are. It doesn't the parts don't equal the sum, it's a weird dynamic there.
Yeah, the only thing worse than the LSU defense is Coach Kelly's Southern accent.
There's a lot of big things I'm not a big fan of with him, but all right, number two on yes, no way, or maybe, Buck Belue, we are finished with realignment for 5 years once Oklahoma and Texas come in.
No,
I think ACC is going to.
I see a day where there's no conferences. Everybody's an independent.
Just 60 teams, and they schedule and
take the 12 best at the end of the year.
I could live with that. We'd have better regular season games, right?
Yeah, I'm going to miss SEC on CBS next year too.
I'm going to miss that during music because they'll probably have the same music on the Big Ten. All right, finally on yes, no way, or maybe we'll let you go, Buck. You can walk into any bar in Athens and get a drink for free.
No.
Oh, come on, man! You got to be.
Stetson Bennett could. Matthew Stafford may. There's a lot of these young folks, they've never heard of the Run Lindsay Run thing.
Yeah, but you're still part of the most iconic play in the history of the program. And nothing's ever going to stop, never going to surpass that.
Yeah, and I just never dreamed that big that something like that would happen.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was so good that the Times Union photographer had his arms in the air and his camera around his neck. He didn't take a picture of it.
Man, all I could think about on the flight home was, man, that was too close. We can't let it get that close anymore.
Well, hey, it's always great talking to you, buddy, and great job up there at 680 The Fan. I know you got your own show, the Buck Belue Show now, and that's great, and you're always a pleasure to listen to. It's always good to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining us here on another Dooley Noted podcast.
Pat, it's always great to be with you. Let me plug my book that's out,
Sure.
Inside the Hedges.
Yeah.
Inside the Hedges, the quarterbacks look back at that 1980 season. And people can find that. They can get it shipped at InsideTheHedges.com. They can find that.
Wow. Did you have a ghostwriter for that, or?
No, I've been working on it for a long time. Finally got it out. We got to pay out-of-state tuition these days. So I had to, I had to get something going on there. So, yeah, it's been out for about a year. And we're very proud of it. Spent a lot of time working on it. So we're trying to just. Going? What's that?
Where are your children going?
I've got a daughter that's a sophomore at Mississippi State.
Oh, okay.
And the two boys are still, we got a junior and senior at high school. We got a big high school football game tonight we got to get to.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll let you go. Thanks so much for joining me, and it's always great. Inside the Hedges is the name of the book if you want to get that. And you can listen to him on 680 The Fan whenever you're around. You can always hear him, especially this week, on all kinds of shows, because it's Florida, Georgia, or as he likes to say, Georgia, Florida week.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios right after this break. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Thursday, November the 16th, come celebrate the release of our Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Lugo's Risky Rum. This exclusive release features a special spread of our farm-to-table food, rum cocktails, raffles, and a meet and greet with me. Each ticket includes a bottle of Spurrier's Single Barrel Select Risky Rum. And I'll sign the bottle if you'd like. So get your ticket before they sell out at spurriers.com.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 280 discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Tonight, the Gainesville Quarterback Club welcomes former coach Ron Zook. We look forward to having Coach Zook at the meeting tonight. And next week, we get ready for our Golden Gator Gala. November 7th, everybody come out in your Sunday best and welcome Jimmy Travis.
All right, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. We appreciate all of our great sponsors. And of course, this is our fun part. We have a lot of different things we do, contests and everything. Always have a good time with it. We always like to start it off, not always, but a lot of times start it off with our Hesser and Kipke three things. And as you know, Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of workers' compensation and family law. Ken and Jennifer take great pride in their one-to-one focus on each and every client they represent. Ken is board certified in workers' compensation law by the Florida Bar, while Jennifer possesses extensive jury trial experience with a nearly 20-year background as a prosecutor. Don't believe me? Well, check out their 5-star Google reviews. Set an appointment at hklawfl.com, or better yet, give them a call at 352-339-9920. That is Hesser and Kipke. And they are the sponsors of Three Things. Let's start with number one on Hesser and Kipke, and that is NBA started. I watched it because there were they have that thing. It's like a red zone, or not even a red zone, but where you can watch all the games the first week, and that sucks you into wanting to buy them. It ain't gonna suck me in, believe me. But I said, hey, let me go watch Billy's team. So I watched Billy's team. Billy's team got throttled, and apparently there was a players-only meeting that the coaches got kicked out of last night. Obviously, they're not happy there. They don't. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they're not good. I know that losing ball has been a big problem for them, but they shouldn't get destroyed like they did last night. And I just worry about. I am the last guy that should be worried about Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan is going to be all right no matter what. He should be worried about me. But I love Billy Donovan. I love his family, and they're so special to me. And I don't want him to, not succeed there. But certainly, it's a struggle for him right now, and we'll see how it goes. But again, it's one game. People tend to overreact. It's bad enough when people overreact to the start of a 162 game baseball season, but an 82 in basketball season. Anyway, we'll just keep watching those games and rooting for Billy and hope he does well. I mean, I'm not even a Bulls fan. I couldn't care less about the Bulls, but I certainly care about Billy Donovan. Number two, Dusty Baker announced he's retiring, and I don't know that it's that big a surprise. I mean, he's up there. I don't even know how old he is. He's in his 70s, I think. But Dusty Baker was one of my first heroes. I mean, I love that guy when he played for the Braves. They had Baker. They had Darrell Evans. They had I can't do it. Davey Johnson and Hank Aaron. I think all four of them hit 40 homers one year. And their record wasn't any good. That's the amazing thing about it. But anyway, I like Dusty Baker as a former Braves player, but he was always managing the teams I didn't want to win, and that included this year. And I'm sorry I had to root against you, but pretty amazing. He never won a Game 7. I don't know how many he had, but he never won one. But good dude, and I feel bad that he's got to get out. He feels like it's time for him to get out, but hey, hopefully he retires better than I did. That's all I'll say. And finally, number three on Hesser and Kipke's Three Things. Florida volleyball, you talk about falling off the radar. I mean, they were the big story there for a while. They were almost dwarfing the basketball team with all these giant wins. And then, of course, Stuckey goes down and they've lost some matches. And they're still out there playing, guys. I mean, I know that it's easy to kind of shove it to the side when football's going on. But they have definitely been off the radar. But they did get a big win Friday against Texas A&M last week. Texas A&M had beaten them earlier, so that's good, and beat them in College Station. So that was a good win. They beat Ole Miss 3-0, and now they've got their next match is number 10 Arkansas. Ooh, that'll be tough. 1:00 on Sunday. So, look, just because you loved going out and watching them play when they were playing all these great teams, here's another great team they're playing. They still deserve your support, is all I'm saying. But they have fallen off the radar. We'll try to get them back on the radar. Just like that. We'll get them on the radar. All right, that is our Hesser and Kipke Three Things. Let's go to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. And as we said, we're going to do our Halloween poll on Monday for a new winner. And it's last chance to qualify. And a lot of you have gotten in on the Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. And it's going to be, I got to write them all down. But it's just going to make it simple. We're going to take the point spread that it was when I last looked at it. Florida getting 14.5 against Georgia. Neutral site game, in case you weren't aware. Well, we used to have a guy, John Hollis, good friend of ours, still is a friend of ours, but we're sitting in the press box, And he looks out and he goes, man, Georgia travels well to this game. Well, of course they do. They get half the seats. Silly. So that's your Leonardo's and Millhopper quick pick. It's very simple. Florida, 14.5 against Georgia. Pick one. I mean, I know it's hard for some of you to pick Georgia, even with given 14.5 points, 14 plus the hook, but you may have to. Let's get to our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week. In this case, it's Gators of the week. Quick little story here, okay? I keep getting bugged by these people who want to take my book, Game of My Life, which is an fairly old book. I mean, it's 8-9 years old, but I have updated a couple of chapters recently. They want to take that book and market it and make a fortune for me. They've even said, we think we can make this into a movie, which right away, is just a scam, right? It's a scam. But what I love is the way they pronounce it. They can't pronounce my name and they can't pronounce Gators. So they'll call and go, we want to talk to you about Mr. Dooley, about your book about the Florida Gators. or they'll go, Gators. Anyway, I haven't fallen for it yet, nor the Nigerian prince. Anyway, that's not the point. Point is, I want to get to our Adams Ribco to go Gators of the week, and it's the Florida women's golf team, and third straight win. And I don't know how good the teams are they're playing against. I know Macy Fuller won again; she's killing it. But you got to give them credit. I mean, you go play in a tournament and you win it. I don't care who's in it. I don't care if I always look and see who's in a tournament before I go play in it. If I see a Burkhardt or a Maris or something like that, I'm probably not going to win. But it's still they're doing really great things out there, and of course, way under the radar. Of course, they're not in their main season. This is their fall season, but they are the Adams Ribco to go Gators of the week. Well done, ladies. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you're doing. Let's get to this, that, and the other. This, that, and the other, of course, is brought to you by Ironwood Golf Course. Was out there today, and may have some news later on in the show about that. Ironwood Golf Course by Ballyhoo Grill, our good friends over there, and of course, our good friends at Shakow Insurance. We appreciate all of our sponsors, all those people. I always found it fascinating that Rick Eckstein, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, Rick Eckstein was the expert at stealing signs. And of course, he went on to be a coach. And I don't know what he's doing now. He's a hitting instructor with the major league team. I don't know what he's doing right now. But anyway, Rick Eckstein was the best at it. And they used to have this game. It was called Snaps. And they taught it to me, and you could whisper a name into my ear, and I could get somebody to guess it without saying a name or anything. It's Snaps. Snaps the name of the game. You do this, A-E-I-O-U. Be sure you hear all the clues. That's a B. So if you go, be sure you hear all the clues, so you got B-A right there. Be sure you get them. What's that? Babe Ruth. Right. See, you are a sign stealer now. So it was just fascinating to me. And always with the guys covering up their mouths. But that wasn't enough. That is that, of course, that wasn't enough. So Michigan took it to a nth degree. There's no way that guy didn't know about it. I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh, didn't know about it or didn't use information from this information that was gathered, that somebody had to sign off on this expense account. He wasn't buying these expensive 45-yard line seats by himself just for the good of the team. We all know that this is not good. We also know this. It ain't going to affect, and this is the other. Anybody who thinks it's going to affect this year's Michigan team, forget it. It is not. It's not going to affect their team or their playoff chances because there's a 90-day appeal. If the NCAA comes down on them and says there's a 90-day appeal, guess what 90 days takes us well past. the end of the college football season and the end of the playoffs. So I don't know. Maybe this is the thing that finally Harbaugh just says, I've had enough of this. I think if he wins it all, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him walk away. But he's cheating, and he has been cheating, and he is a cheater. And that's all I care about. But that's this, that, and the other. Brought to you by Ironwood, by Darshak Insurance, and by Ballyhoo Grill. Let us get to our Swamp games of the weekend, and these are the games to be watching. I know they've got a lot of specials out at the Swamp right now. Good time to be going out there and watch some sports. Of course, Florida, Georgia, 3:30 on CBS. I'm going to give you, but this is what I'm going to start giving you on this. I do want to give you the baseball and the NFL game, but I'm going to give you a noon, a 3:30, and a 7 to 7:30 game, because that's the way I write them down. I've got them all written down here, what's coming up. So the noon game, the best noon game to me, and you're going to go, that's the best you can do, probably is, I think it's South Carolina and Texas A&M. Yeah, I Oklahoma, Kansas is not going to do it for me. So I think South Carolina A&M. Look, this is not a great week for football. There's some good games, but not all of them are good. That's on ESPN. That's the noon game. The 3:30 game, the best one, if you eliminate Florida and Georgia. Oregon, Utah ought to be great. At Utah, of course, tough place to play. That's a 3:30 game on Fox. And the best late game, the best 7 o'clock game, Tennessee at Kentucky. I'm really interested to see how this one goes, because these are teams that take different paths to get to where they want to go, and we'll see how it goes. So that is on ESPN. That's the late game. The baseball starts Friday, Arizona at Texas, 8:03 on Fox, and I think all the games are on Fox. Saturday, same thing, and then no game Sunday for baseball, and then we'll see where we are. The NFL game tonight ought to be an interesting one. Tampa Bay at Buffalo. That game is on ESPN, of course, 8:15 p.m. No, I'm sorry, it's on Prime Video. I think I'll watch it. Maybe not. Okay, so those are the Swamp games of the weekend. That takes us into our quarterback club. Great picks. James Bates was awesome Tuesday night. So good. Crazy Rich was there, showed up. So that made for some good stuff. I think this week it's Ron Zook is speaking. In fact, I introduced Ron Zook on Tuesday night, so that'll be fun. So if you want to still become a member, I know that at least 2 people showed up on Tuesday night, this past Tuesday night, 2 new members, and another guy who watches the podcast is a friend of Mike Jordan's, who sponsors our Pat Dooley Storytime, which is coming up, and he was listening to the radio show too, and as he was coming up, he goes, "Hey, I hear the podcast all the time. I can stop in here. I'm on the way to Savannah. I can stop in here and go see James Bates and go see Pat Dooley." And it was cool. It was really great to meet him, and really cool guy. So anyway, let's get to our Gainesville Quarterback Club great picks. So, and as you know, I'm not doing well. I've already missed one for the early games this week, but the late games, I'm taking Georgia and giving the 14.5. Sorry, Gator fans. I just think they're too good. I'm taking A&M and giving 14.5 against South Carolina as well. I think South Carolina is about to do the opposite of what they did last year. Last year, they weren't going too good, and then they had this great run. I think this year it's going to be, it's just going to go right down the tube. And I think A&M's better than them. I'm taking Auburn, giving 6.5 against Mississippi State. That's a tough call because Mississippi State, just won that game against Arkansas, but they also scored 7 points. And Auburn's got no offense. That could be a 3-2 game. We'll see. I'm going to take the Ducks against Utah. Utah's got so many guys banged up. Kyle Whittingham is a really good coach. Again, nobody's going to steal him. The only school that could steal him is if Saban stepped down. But would Alabama fans really want Kyle Whittingham to be their coach? A guy who was more of a, run the ball, play defense. Maybe they would. I don't know. He's older. We'll see. And then I'm taking the Mighty Vols, giving 3.5. I'm giving a lot of points. In fact, I'm picking all favorites. I didn't even realize that. against Kentucky. I'm picking Tennessee. I just think they'll be able to score more. So that's what I have. And again, don't go by me because I've not been very good on the picks lately. I'm slumping, I guess you could say. That is our Gainesville Quarterback Club. Great picks. And again, Ron Zook will be the speaker on Tuesday if you want to come and hear what he's got to say. It'll be fun. All right, let us get to Pat Dooley story time, brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics and by my good friend Mike Jordan. And yeah, in fact, the guy that I met, I'm blanking on his name. The guy that I met actually took his children to Eastlake Pediatrics. So that's how he knows Mike. So pretty cool. So I wanted to bring this up, and it's I don't know, it's story time. It's story time to me. I have been struggling with the idea of having another golf tournament, and last year's tournament went so well, raised more money than ever. It's stressful though, and I've been struggling. And then, of course, when Jeff left Ironwood, and now, things a little shaky out there, how things are going. But the good news is Eric Thomas is now running things, and met with him today. Look, I'm not committing to it, but it's likely going to happen again. We've got a date picked out. I don't want to reveal it on the air. Well, maybe I will. May 11th is the date we picked out. Now, I'm not saying that we're definitely having the tournament. All I'm saying is it's trending that way. I still need to talk to some people, make sure they want to get out there and do all the fun things they did. People like Adam and people like Keith over at Big Mills Cheesesteak, all those people to be part of this. So, and we hope they will. And we'll have it. That's what I'm saying. We're probably going to have a turn. Probably. So that's the big news. That's breaking news. Because I know every year everybody says, "Oh, Pat, you always say this is the last year." I'm like, "Yeah, I usually do. I say it during the tournament. This is the last year. I'm losing my mind." A couple days later, I go, "Okay, we're going to do it again next year." This time, I thought we were done. I thought we were absolutely done, but maybe we're going to come back and have it. Looks like maybe we are. Looks like we probably are, but we haven't committed to it yet. We are going to reduce the field, so you're going to better get your money in when we do it. But I haven't announced it yet. All right, that's going to do it for our show. Appreciate all our great guests and look forward to Monday when Coach Spur will be in and we'll talk about the Florida-Georgia game. Interesting topic. Wow. Until then, thanks so much to Zach. I wanted to say Zach Rothrock, but I made it into one name. So your name from now on is Zoc. It's like a Superman character's name. Well, Zoc came in here with his kryptonite. Thanks to Zach for doing a great job, as always. Until next time, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.